Hello everyone. Thank you very much for coming along today. I thought that was a fascinating panel discussion, real down-to-earth, real-world stories, which is great to hear. I'm going to take a slightly different perspective, going to take it a bit more high level, try and share with you some insights on green innovation development trends. Hopefully, the technology will be interesting to you, the insights will be interesting to you, and maybe, if not either of those, then recognizing some of the trends that we see in innovation will be interesting to you. Bit of background on me. I'm a patent attorney, European UK patent attorney. I specialize in the chemical and life sciences. Day to day, my job is advising in relation to IP strategy, drafting, filing patent applications, doing freedom to operate work, and just generally managing international patent portfolios. My firm, Appleyard Lees IP, is a leading intellectual property firm. We represent clients across the green innovation spectrum. And in recent years, our firm, we've taken a lead on using patent filing data to provide insights into green innovation. And we put this into our Inside Green Innovation report, our annual report. The idea of the report is to get behind the rhetoric around green technology, try and talk a bit more about the actual solutions that are being produced around the world. And as patent attorneys, we felt well placed to contribute to this part of the discussion. We work with technological solutions every day across a wide range of innovators, and we know how to navigate those massive patent databases. So, green innovation, it's potentially a very broad catch-all term. For the purposes of this report, we treat it as defining any technology that is capable of limiting or reducing negative environmental impact. Obviously, we can't cover all technologies. So what we aim to do every year is pick out the hottest areas. We look at what's in the media, what are people talking about, what do people want to hear the most about. Each year, we start with these three catch-all kind of headline categories: food, materials, and energy. And for 2022, I think we'll all agree quite clearly the hottest category was energy. So we focused on that and we expanded our energy section from 2021's report. We looked at renewable energy generation in solar. We looked at renewable energy storage or storage in batteries. And we looked at efficient energy use with heat pumps. And then we also looked at hydrogen technology, covering from production, storage, and use. Within materials, we looked at plastics again, as we did in 2021. How can we not? That's one of the hottest areas, generally speaking, I think. And then this year, for 2022, we added carbon capture. We looked at capturing emissions at source, and we also looked at direct air capture. And within food, for 2022, we focused on the alternative protein sector, looking at the emerging industries of plant-based meat, cultivated meat, and insect protein. It might be interesting to those of you who are following vertical farming, such as Paul, that our 2021 report had a section on that, and it's really interesting to read it, I think, to see the history of the enabling technologies coming online. So, for example, the LED lights, much more efficient, reduced energy use, the increasing prevalence of renewable energy, helping to see technologies such as vertical farming become more viable. So these are our hot areas for 2022. What we did for each of these areas is we used patent filing data to identify global trends, but we also broke down those trends by country, by applicant, and by technology type to provide a variety of hopefully very interesting insights. At least I think they're interesting. And all this work was captured in our freely available online report. Just use your search engine, Google Inside Green Innovation Progress Report, or go via our website. And of course, you'll be able to find it. And this is a screen grab from the landing page. As I said, this is the second year we've done the report. Again, we received great feedback, prompted some really, really interesting discussions. I personally always find that using patent filing data shines a lot of light into dark areas. We use it for a variety of aspects when we're advising our clients, and obviously for this report as well. It can be a really powerful tool for generating insights into technology development, and hopefully I can share some of those insights with you now. So what did we find for 2022? Well, we found lots of recent growth. across a number of key technology areas, which is obviously really great to see. But what I think was particularly interesting this year was where that growth was coming from. We found interesting comparisons between different types of core technology innovation, and we also found some interesting insights into innovation in non-core areas, and more on that shortly. But first, I'm going to start with hydrogen, and specifically the production of green hydrogen. And I'm going to start here because it is a really nice, clean example of recent growth in the core technology. And it's also an area I find very interesting. So green hydrogen, what is green hydrogen? Very quickly, I'm sure most of you are already aware. It's the production of hydrogen from water using renewable energy. Electrolysis is used to simply convert water into hydrogen and oxygen. It's a very clean process where renewable energy is used. And the core technology here is the electrolyzer itself. The hydrogen that is produced, the green hydrogen that is produced by the electrolyzer, is potentially exceptionally useful. It's a sustainable raw material in industry, and it's also a sustainable potential energy source. If we run the electrolyzer in reverse, if we put the hydrogen back in with oxygen, we get electricity out, and the after effects is just a bit of water. So very useful, very clean potentially, and we could use that electricity to power things like cars. First graph from our report I'm going to share with you. Don't worry about the specific numbers, just note the trend line. This graph here shows the global patent filings over time for technology used to produce green hydrogen. Most of the graphs I'm going to show you will show the number of new patent filings annually over time. The vertical y-axis will give the number of patent filings for that year, and then the year is from on the horizontal x-axis in ascending order from left to right. We can see, for example, here that in 2010, 75 new patent filings were filed globally for technology to produce green hydrogen. And in 2020, that number was almost 200. And I think we can see quite clearly that we had steady growth in the production of green hydrogen technology until about 2019, where things appear to really be taking off. This figure shows the territories where those filings are coming from. And the takeaway here is that I can see, you might not be able to, is that a lot of this growth in the recent years has been driven by European innovators, which is really great to see. Obviously, it's a global innovation problem, and there are other countries contributing as well. South Korea we've seen strong growth from, but it's really nice to see a lot of innovations coming from Europe. Figure 3, and this is where we can start to, I find it a bit more interesting, we can start to see where the innovation is coming from. And we can see that this helps us to understand that it's primarily relating to the core technology, to the electrolyzer. This graph shows that most of the innovation is in the chemical fields, and we dug a bit deeper into the data, and we found that the innovations related to surface technology and new types of coatings for the electrolyzer to help us be able to produce that hydrogen more efficiently and more cheaply. So I think this is a really nice example of recent growth in a core technology in the electrolyzer components. What about innovation or recent innovation in non-core technology areas? Well, for solar, heat pumps, and hydrogen fuel cells, we found that innovation in the core technologies had actually stalled some years ago. But we are still seeing significant recent growth in the patent filings outside of the core technologies. And to capture these non-core technologies, we stole the term from solar called a balance of system innovation. By balance of system innovation, we mean that we're talking about, say, ancillary components that you need to make the core components work, or perhaps particular adaptions to make the core components work in various end-use applications. So we could be talking about mounts, special mounts for solar panels. We could be talking about sun tracking technology. We could be talking about adaptions for fuel cells to use them in cars, for example. And we found that for solar heat pumps and hydrogen fuel cells, like I say, innovation in the core technology had dropped off a cliff some years ago, but at the same time, the balance of system innovation had skyrocketed in some respects. And this graph is illustrative of that. This shows core innovation for solar cells. And we can see a very sharp and rather dramatic drop off during the solar shakeout of 2010 through to 2011. But we can compare this to figure 2 here, which shows the balance of system innovation. And we can see that growth, although it did dip a little bit around 2011, it then quickly picks up and is currently at record high levels of filings. And these two graphs are remarkably similar for both heat pumps and hydrogen fuel cells. If I wanted to speculate a little bit, perhaps these patterns are due to the core technology reaching a stage of commercial viability. Further iterative innovation just became unviable. And then perhaps we saw a falling off of subsidies as manufacturing costs plummeted as well. And I'm sure a lot of companies will have struggled during the solar shakeout and the subsequent reorientation of the market and whatnot. Innovation then clearly turned, whether it is the same companies or new companies spotting opportunities to apply this mature core technology. Innovation then turned to the balance of system innovation. That's not to say, of course, that core innovation is not still going on, perhaps at more of a grassroots level, maybe in universities. But this change, I imagine, the focus now, I imagine, will be on step change innovation. So can we get new material for those solar panels that are going to give the significant leap in performance that justify the costs of moving away from a more mature technology? And then figure 8 at the bottom, just wanted to drop that in because AI is obviously a big buzzword at the moment and it's got great potential. And I just wanted to illustrate that AI obviously has its place in green innovation. And this is AI in solar. And we can see since 2018, although still at a relatively low level, the numbers are really taking off. So we have seen core technology growth with green hydrogen production, and we have seen peak core and balance of system innovation with solar heat pumps and hydrogen fuel cells. What about examples where there are multiple core technologies? And that brings us to batteries. Now, in 2001, and this was touched on before, the concept of long-term energy storage, we looked at both short-term and long-term energy storage, and I think really interesting areas. Obviously, everyone's aware the Achilles heel of renewable energy, such as wind, is that sometimes the wind doesn't blow. So what can we do during those periods of lack of wind, of lack of renewable energy generation? How can we store surplus from times of surplus to use in those times of deficiency? Well, if you're interested in long-term storage, please do look to the 2021 report. We covered it extensively in there. But for 2022, we focused on short-term energy storage. We compared specifically liquid lithium-ion batteries, which I'm sure we're all aware of, with what appears to be the up-and-coming solid-state battery technology. And this was a good example of multiple core technologies in an area. We have the new core technology that's emerging, the solid state, that is potentially disruptive to an established core technology, the lithium-ion batteries. This graph shows patent filings and innovation around lithium-ion batteries. It's plateaued since 2010, still at high levels, though obviously it's a very commercially viable technology at the moment. It's getting cheaper, it's getting more efficient. However, this figure here shows innovation and filings around solid-state battery technology, and it's shot up since 2015. It looks set soon to overtake the annual filing numbers for lithium-ion. Solid-state batteries have got several benefits over lithium-ion, not least that they potentially have higher charge density and are less likely to set on fire, I believe. Perhaps unsurprisingly, as shown in this chart, it's the multinationals in the automotive sector that are dominating the solid-state filing area at the moment. Again, probably chasing that higher charge density for using their vehicles and whatnot. So in batteries, we have an example of a potentially disruptive new core technology emerging. And I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I think the risk of the emergence of new core disruptive technologies such as this can be an issue for green tech. It can sometimes be perhaps a brake on investment. The green tech innovation space can be very fast moving, but it is also capital intensive. So when is the right time to take the plunge on any particular technology? It's really difficult call to make, I think. Carbon capture is another good example of an area having multiple core technologies, this time perhaps more complementary than disruptive. Carbon capture is obviously the concept of preventing carbon dioxide from entering the atmosphere or pulling it back afterwards. If you're capturing it before it goes into the atmosphere, you're capturing it at source, so the power stations or the factories. If you're pulling it back from the wider atmosphere, that's being called direct air capture, and we looked at both technologies. This figure here shows that innovation around carbon capture at source. So at the power stations, at the factories, we saw dramatic growth between 2004 and 11. It's then got a bit up and down, but more recently we've seen another upsurge, which is good to see. But this is filing for direct air capture. Now, not much going on there until 2017, but we've suddenly seen it take off and probably starting the journey that capture at source has been on. It's innovation in direct air capture, I suspect, is, or it appears from our review, is focused on the more unique problem that direct air capture has, which is a smaller amount of carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere compared to capturing at source. So you need different filtering and capture technologies. And I think it'll be really fascinating to see how these two technologies develop over time. Okay, bioplastics. So as I'm sure everyone is aware again, conventional plastics, really slow to degrade. When plastic waste enters the environment, it can remain there for decades. One solution is to replace those conventional plastics with those that are biodegradable or bioplastics. Plastics is actually one of the harder areas to analyze, and that comes from the nature of the material. Plastics, really widely applicable, really adaptable, but unfortunately that's their greatest asset, but it's also one of the greatest problems when it comes to addressing their environmental impact. It's unlikely to be one-size-fits-all solutions. We're going to see a huge number of different bespoke solutions probably in order to introduce bioplastics effectively. It's also difficult to talk about core and non-core technologies. It just gets a bit messy. There are, however, a couple of technologies that really roll off the tongue that stood out from this year's report. Butylene-based polymers, biopolymers useful for food and cosmetic packaging. We saw high growth there. And also polyhydroxyicanoates, PHAs. Again, that stood out as having high growth in recent years, and drug delivery and biodegradable implants. We're obviously a long way from replacing all conventional polymers with bioplastics, so how can we recycle our conventional plastics better? One promising method is chemical recycling, and the ultimate objective of that is to revert our polymers back to their constitutional monomers. We want to take the chain, we want to break it back up to its initial raw ingredients, which we can then use again as fully as we can. For chemical recycling, the numbers were dropping, but we've seen a significant uptake, and there's a range of technologies being explored. Pyrolysis is the most prevalent, but we're also seeing growth in some other areas. Right, very quickly. Okay. Alternative protein. So this is the concept of finding alternatives to traditional farming to produce some or all of our protein, with the objective of reducing the environmental impacts in the production of our protein requirements. Cultivated meat is meat grown from bioreactors using animal cells. Plant-based meat, which perhaps we're more familiar with, is meat-like analogues produced from plants, surprisingly. And insect protein refers to the use, and I'd really love to watch everyone's faces as I said this, the use of insect-sourced protein in our food, normally added as a powder or a flour. Starting with cultivated meat, this is a great example of a new industry emerging. We're involved with clients in this area. It's really fascinating. And patent filings have absolutely taken off in recent years. Plant-based meat, a bit of a longer known industry perhaps, but again, we're seeing filings take off in recent years. And again, a really large contribution from European innovators there. Similar trend for insect protein. It's a bit more of a well-known concept, especially in some areas of Asia, but we've seen adoption by European innovators, especially in recent years, and quite a dramatic escalation in growth of filing numbers. I think these industries are particularly interesting because we see from the data, and we know from experience, that a lot of the companies are startups, are spin out a pre-revenue. And obviously when you're developing a new industry, there are lots of issues beyond just the technical problems to address. You've got regulatory hurdles to overcome, you've got investors to keep on side, you've got a customer base to grow. We've already touched on it today, but it's about, a lot of the problem is about making those consumer behavior changes that are going to be crucial to achieve any sort of mass markets. And it's certainly a challenge, but I think that comes with trying to establish what is essentially a new industry. Those challenges have been faced before and overcome, and I have every confidence that hopefully we'll see that again. This is quite an interesting slide. What we often see in these kind of new industries emerging is, okay, the pattern numbers going up, but it's not dominated by a few players. Often we see, as the pattern numbers go up, the number of new people entering the innovation space also goes up, which I think is really nice to see. I mean, it is also fair to say that the people who were first movers, the people who got in there early, will often be doubling down by this time. And their portfolios will be growing as their R&D matures, but we still see new people coming into the sector, challenging with their own innovations. Right, so that was a global overview. I'm over time, so stop me if you want, but just very, very quickly, what about here in Greater Manchester? Well, for me, you know, there's clearly lots of opportunity for new business opportunities in green innovation. You've got the development of new technology, which is obviously my main interest. You've got the commercialization and application of the green technology, which loads of opportunities there. I think we've covered that well today. And the provision of services such as technical consulting and whatnot and auditing. Personally, I would love to see the growth of loads of internationally exporting companies developed in the region, exporting really good green technology around the world. We're obviously seeing great things happen here. The universities continue to push boundaries. We are seeing commercial applications come online. Public-private partnerships are developing, underlying infrastructures. Obviously, the underlying infrastructure for hydrogen is quite contentious. We're seeing things like HyNet trying to address that. And we're seeing, again, public-private partnerships trying to put in place those technology hubs where we see so many great innovators come from. Just to finish on a note of caution, these environmental problems are obviously, on the whole, a global concern, which means there's going to be a large pool of interested competitors, if you want to look at it that way. So there's no time to rest on your laurels, really, especially in terms of technical innovation. There's a lot of people trying to solve these problems. But you could look at that more brightly. You could say a bit of competition is great, and it will hopefully mean that the key green technologies that will help us to meet our targets while maintaining a recognizable way of life are just around the corner. And as I hope I've demonstrated, we're certainly seeing a lot of activity, innovative activity in that direction. Right, Joe, that was a very quick whistle-stop tour through there. I really hope that was of some interest to you. If you want to see more, please do go and see our report. And of course, get in touch if we can help you with your green IP strategy. Thank you very much.